So, Ys 1 and 2. What a concept. I never even heard about it until I was on my way to hell browsing ROM sites as a 15-year-old kid. Eventually I came across Ys 1 and 2 Chronicles and decided to try it out, thinking it wasn't going to be anything special. Little did I know that it would end up becoming one of my all-time favorite series, with Ys 6, Ark of Nepishtim being my all-time favorite. Anyway, Ys Book 1 and 2 was first released on the TurboGrafx 16 in North America, the same year Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And the version of the game I'll be reviewing is an enhanced remaster of the PSP remake that was ported to Steam back in 2013, called Ys 1 and 2 Chronicles Plus, the same year that Miley Cyrus was making out with a sledgehammer while riding on top of a wrecking ball nude and calling it a music video. Now, you would think that because this is a JRPG, that there would be a big focus on the story, and, well, yeah, it sort of does in a way rely heavily on the story, but you'll spend most of your time going through dungeons to collect key items in order to progress. And I know that there will be some of you guys, specifically Nintendo fanboys, who would take one look at the gameplay I'm showing off right now and think that it's a shameless Zelda clone with nothing to write home about. First of all, fuck you. Second, the concept of a character moving around in an open world and killing off enemies in dungeons was not an original idea by Nintendo. Despite Miyamoto claiming that his inspiration for The Legend of Zelda was from him getting lost in the woods as a child and getting raped in the butt by Ganondorf or something, the actual base of the game world was directly influenced by older Japanese RPGs released on retro gaming computers that you never heard of or cared about. And one of those Japanese RPGs was called Dragon Slayer, made by Nihon Falcom, who would later go on to be a household name for games like the Legend of Heroes series, and of course, as you probably guessed, the Ys series. So saying that Ys is a ripoff of The Legend of Zelda is like saying that Brazil is a ripoff of Spain, when it's actually a ripoff of Portugal, you dummy. And if I'm being 100% honest with you guys, I actually like the Ys series more than I do the Zelda series. The Legend of Zelda is for betas, and Ys is for the based, red-pilled, 9-tenant worshipping Omega Chads like myself. In Ys 1, you play as Adol, a red-headed youth who always wanted to go on adventures and ended up stranded on Asteria after surviving a shipwreck. A nurse helps heal your wounds, and you decide it's your mission to help kill off all the monsters and destroy the evil priest Dark Fact, a Jennifer Aniston impersonator who looks like he works as a vampire drag queen on the side. It's explained by a fortune teller that the land of Ys was ruled by two goddesses, and like most women with power, they can't accomplish anything without a man doing all the actual work, which involves Adol collecting and reading a bunch of books in order to save the world and kill Dark Fact. So from here on out, the game encourages you to explore around and find key items to help you progress through the main story, leading you to the Dharm Tower, where you'll meet with Dogi, Luda Genma, and some old guy. Together, they help each other collect all of the books of Ys that weren't available in the overworld, rescue Rhea, the harmonica chick, and go through what is probably the most annoying final boss in any JRPG I've reviewed thus far. Seriously, every time Dark Fact kills you, it's like he dunks his morning wood inside your breakfast. Anyway, picking up the final book of Ys leads directly into the plot of Ys 2, where Adol gets woken up by a girl named Lilia on the floating island of Ys inside Lance Village, where you learn that monsters are hanging around here as well, like a chick with a fat ass in my house at 6 in the morning, who can't take a hint and realize that instead of frying me eggs and bacon with butter toast after a night of patting each other on the head, that she needed to fry my nuts and align the bacon on my taint while she shoves the toast up my butt like a proper lady. Kimberly! As one would assume, it's up to Adol to kill off the main antagonists, this time Dallies and Dharm, to get rid of the demons in order to bring peace to the island he woke up on, as well as Asteria, the open world from the previous game. A new addition to the core gameplay is the magic system, and it pretty much takes the bump combat that was already established in Ys 1 and makes it less important. Yeah, sure, you can kill some enemies that way, but with how overpowered magic is, you might as well just throw the bump system in the grinder like Bambi. During your first playthrough, it's easy to understand why the only way to get anything done is by running around aimlessly spamming magic at enemies out of self-defense, especially after witnessing the fiery, but mostly peaceful demonic creatures, with long beefy health bars that LARP around each area of the game until they can find someone to charge at. Thankfully, the game allows you to turn into one of them to get information and infiltrate areas that couldn't be reached as a normal human being. Another noticeable change is that the game is way more linear and has more of a variety in terms of the environments. You start out in a town next to a grassy area, which leads you to a frozen tundra, and killing the boss there will teleport you to a lava world. And rescuing the son of a man who controls the bridge will convince him to let you cross into Ramia Village, which will let you go to Solomon's Shrine, the headache-inducing mega dungeon that's so easy to get lost in that it'll make you want to kick puppies out of pure frustration. Honestly, every dungeon in this game is headache-inducing at first, but Solomon's Shrine requires at least 10 anvils, a bucket of Red Bull, and maybe even being strapped to a chair with your eyes pried open, while a funny man in a white coat drops saline in your eyes for first-time players to not get lost. But I digress. After infiltrating Solomon's Shrine, it's revealed to the player that some of the people who were kidnapped by Dallies had escaped to a runaway hideout. Unfortunately, the runaways all turned into stone because Adol led Dallies there unintentionally. But after meeting with Keith, he hands over the keys to the water control room with the exaggerated swagger of a green lizard demon so that you can drain the water canal and reach the exit leading to the goddess's palace. And in case you're wondering, yeah, I would. All of this leads to a bunch of mandatory backtracking to find key items to use as offerings for the goddesses, so that they'll give you an item which lets you turn all the runaways back to normal. And once you find and defeat Dallies, go through the core Vs, and meet up with two of the goddesses again, it's time to kill the final boss, Darm, a biblically accurate angel who's so easy to fight, you could hump the left analog stick and still defeat him due to how broken shield magic is. You heard me right. The gameplay I'm showing on screen right now is actually me moving Adol with my 3-foot-long Schwangstucker pressed to my controller. Now, an observation that I made when playing through both Ys 1 and 2 is how weird the level design, gameplay mechanics, and story progression is for both games in different ways. For instance, in Ys 1, the game's world can be organized into two parts. The first is the open world, where you can travel to different towns and enter dungeons to complete quests. 80% of the key items that you need to unlock the Darm Tower are all found in the abandoned mines, located on the northern part of the map. So once you rescue Fina and kill off the bosses for both the Shrine of Solomon and the abandoned mines while picking up every treasure chest you come across, there isn't really anything else important to discover, which feels weird in terms of pacing. The second part is the Darm Tower, which, despite being the final dungeon, takes up a significant portion of your playtime. And with 30 floors to navigate, it makes me wonder if Dallies was compensating for something during the construction of it. With Ys 2, the level design was even weirder for me, because instead of having an overworld with towns and maze-like dungeons sprinkled inside the map, like unevenly separated pepperonis on a Walmart pizza, it instead goes for a more linear approach, where the maze-like dungeons are the overworld, with towns acting like pit stops between each one, like a bunch of naked Yoko Ono bushes being lined up parallel to each other on a clothesline with little doilies in between just to patronize you. Another thing worth bringing up is the difficulty curve. Ys 1 is cryptic, but defeating enemies never frustrated me outside of the final boss. In Ys 2, what would take 2 or 3 hits to kill a basic enemy takes about 6 or 7 with just the bump combat. So if you don't want to have a miserable time, I would recommend spending a few hours in Ramia Village grinding enemies until you're between level 10 or 15. That way once you get magic, the game won't feel as frustrating. My first attempt at playing Ys 2 back in 2020 was such a miserable experience, because trying to navigate the dungeons was like trying to debug a community college level Java project with hundreds of nested loops, so I just gave up. I loved Ys 1 at my first attempt, but Ys 2 not so much. Well, within the last month, I beat both Ys 1 and 2 back to back, and my opinions have flipped. I still like Ys 1, don't get me wrong, but Ys 2 has more going on with its gameplay. So overall, I had a fun time replaying these games again. I know it might sound like I'm ranting, or that I'm nitpicking a bunch of things that I don't like, but I can promise you I'm not. Ys 1 and 2 is weird, and the weirdness just adds more to the game's charm. So I hope you guys enjoyed my review, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.